All right, welcome, my friends, to episode 660 of Extreme Health Radio. Thanks so much for joining us today. I apologize for the delay. We had some tech issues at the beginning of the show, so I apologize for that. But it is free content, and we have Sofia Smallstorm here today. This is going to be an awesome, awesome show because I'm sure, like me, many of you have seen a lot of people talking about this. Let me just call it C19, maybe for for censorship reasons. The C19 pandemic that's going around, if you want to call it that. So we're going to talk about virology, what viruses really are. We're going to get into and dig into the testing behind all this stuff and a lot of things that maybe you've never heard of before, and different and a completely different take on viruses and how they impact our health from Sofia Smallstorm. So I will introduce her in just a second. This is going to be an awesome show. If you're new or unfamiliar with our work, we do shows every Friday morning at 10:45 a.m. Pacific time, live here on YouTube for as long as they have us. We don't get kicked off the platform. Live on YouTube and live on Facebook and live on Twitter and all of that. So every Friday morning, 10:45 a.m. Pacific time. And if you are subscribed to iTunes, we do best of shows 6 days a week. So there's a brand new show probably to you 6 days a week. And then on Sunday night is our brand new shows there. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the content that we have coming out for you guys. So next week we have Amanda Vollmer, and we're going to talk about DMSO, the hidden history of DMSO and its applicable uses for all kinds of different conditions. Powerful substance, DMSO. We're going to talk to George Wiseman on Friday about hydrogen and Brown's gas. And then we're going to talk to, next Friday after that, Tyler LeBaron from the Molecular Hydrogen Institute. And then we're going to talk with Dr. Michelle Lamassa Schrader about recall healing. Very, very fascinating. And Matt Blackburn, we'll talk with him. So all kinds of really cool stuff coming up on Extreme Health Radio. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the content like I mentioned before. Today, this is going to be a cool show. Episode 660. So we'll put all the links over at extremehealthradio.com/660. So I first became aware of Sofia, many years ago. She gave a presentation. I forget, it was the Atlantic something presentation. Then I recently heard her on the Fullerton Informer and various different podcasts and all kinds of stuff. And she's an independent researcher, and she's gotten into extensively hidden agendas on things like 9/11, and she understands contract law and magnetism and virology and cells, and she studies this stuff, corporate government, all kinds of really, really interesting topics that she's into around biology and health and these types of things. And she's a graduate of Brown University, and her blog is at sofiasmallstorm.com, and she's got cool bioremediation products over at avatarproducts.com. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Let me bring up her picture because she's not doing an image. Let me bring her up really quickly and see if I can show her image so we can introduce her really quickly. Here we go. Sofia, thank you so much for joining us.
You're very kind to have me, Justin, and please don't make people think that I've studied these things and I'm an expert. I'm just a normal person who has curiosity. I always did, even as a child, and I want to know how things work, and I'm not happy with pat, weak answers to things or no solution to something. That's obviously a problem, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I was thinking, I was listening to one of your previous podcasts recently, and I thought of you as a dot connector, someone who connects dots.
Yeah, I mean, I like to do that, I like to read a little bit and then think a lot. And when you think a lot, there are relationships that come together that seem really kind of nebulous at first, but the more you think and then you read a little bit more, and then you'll see that this material is forming. So I call this my own kind of guided insight. And that process is really important to learning about anything. I think learning should be more reflecting and less ingestion than it is under normal circumstances,
Yeah, no, that's so true. It's interesting. What's an example of something in your life? Because I can think of a million in my life where you learn something and then you start connecting dots. And I know today we're going to focus on the C19 as it's called, but What are some examples where you've connected dots like that and you've looked further into things and see how things connect?
Well, I'll tell you, way back in 2009, I think it was, I saw a documentary. It was one of these online things made by, I think his name was Aaron Franz. He lives in Orange County. I actually contacted him and met with him, and it was about Ray Kurzweil and the futurists and this thing that they were calling transhumanism, marriage of man with machine. And it was very futuristic. It was an early video that explained what the people that we know all too well about now were shooting for. And I was really impressed. But this huge light bulb went off in my head because I had been studying all the materials that were being absorbed into people's bodies and into the ground and into plants and into many life forms that were coming from this aerosol spraying, what they call now geoengineering. Back then they called it chemtrails. We still use that word. And it was Clifford Carnicom, who then started his Carnicom Institute, who was finding biological materials in the fallout. I mean, on the high mountains of New Mexico, he would go up and collect, specimens of, I guess, earth, and it had in it these desiccated red blood cells. He called them erythrocytes. That's their technical name. And red blood cells are falling out of the sky. And then when he cultured them, along with some of these other fibrous materials he was finding environmentally in his environmental samples, he found that they were self-replicating and that they could take all kinds of assault. I mean, normally, if something is biological and belongs to our kingdom of life, eukaryotic, it will not withstand high heat or harsh chemicals, because you can't. If I put high heat, a Bunsen flame on your little finger, it would burn, right?
Right.
If I dipped your little finger in harsh chemicals, it would fry. So he was doing these tests to these red blood cells and other materials that he had collected in found in his environmental samples, and they were reacting very, very hardily, which meant that they were not from our kingdom of life. And for instance, the archaea, that's another bacterial biological kingdom. Archaea can handle high heat and harsh agents, but bacteria can't. So Carnicom suggested that there was something that had to do with, outside the bounds of normal biology going on. Synthetic biology, you could call it. And when I, who had learned about this, saw the transhumanism documentary, I went, whoa, they're trying to put synthetic biology into our bodies. This might be the first sign of the transhumanist transformation that we're going to undergo, right?
Right.
So I happened to be at ConspiracyCon that year, and just a month or two ago I had heard about this from the documentary that I watched, Aaron Franz's documentary called The Transcendent Man, was it called? No, that was Ray Kurzweil. Oh, God, I wish I could remember the name. It'll come to me. But Aaron Franz, unbelievable. The age of something. The age of, just type that in. See, I'm having my senior moment.
No. The age of transitions?
Yes.
Okay.
That was it. The age of transitions.
Found it.
So anyway, I was at ConspiracyCon, and I had a table, and I had Clifford Carnicom's DVDs. I was selling DVDs then, and T-shirts and stuff. And people they knew who I was from my website, and they said, why aren't you a speaker? I said, because the guy who's organizing this doesn't know about me. And when I was explaining to the people who were buying from me, I was in the exhibitors hall, that chemtrails, the real purpose behind chemtrails might be this introduction of artificial materials, synthetic biology into our bodies. They said, wow, and they were like jumping up and going, you should be a speaker here. And 2 years later I gave the first presentation in the From Chemtrails to Pseudo Life series at ConspiracyCon.
Wow.
But back then I was just a little nobody with a table. I was a vendor. So that was how it started. There were dots, you see, that I put together just because I had these two disparate bodies of information that had like a natural hook line into
Right.
each other. So this happens now all the time because I
Yeah.
know more.
Yeah, and so it's fascinating too when you start thinking about how everything really is connected and there's reasons for it. Yet sometimes most people don't put those connections together. But that's an interesting connection because if you look at transhumanism and the introduction of foreign materials into human bodies, I mean, it could be anything from hearing aids to glasses, but biological is different, and it's
Well,
fascinating. You
it's
came up
all
with that.
about how big. I mean, The Peg-Legged Pirate of Sulu was a book I read when I was a kid. So that's a machine part, wood, right?
Uh huh.
It's not really a machine. I mean, it's the most elementary machine form is a peg leg. So yeah, Kurzweil and others have argued, oh yeah, we have hearing aids and eyeglasses and we've got now implants, dental implants and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So I would venture to say that I was possibly the first person in this conspiracy community that said, hey, we're getting into transhumanism by way of synthetic biology.
Oh my
So,
goodness! Wow.
yeah, so the first from chemtrails to pseudo life presentation at ConspiracyCon in 2011 was titled The Dark Agenda of Synthetic Biology. And then the second one, I did that at John White's Chemtrails Conference, which was held in LA in a
Mm.
theater. And that title was From Chemtrails to Pseudo Life Living in the Manhattan Project. Because Justin, now we have gone through sequential phases of the Manhattan Project. The
Mm-hmm.
Manhattan Project didn't end with, the bomb manufacturing in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. Manhattan Project was not shut down ever. Manhattan Project lives on today, and we have moved into phase 3 and even now phase 4 of it. So all this wireless radiation is part of radiation biology, and synthetic biology is the twin sister or brother of
Mm-hmm.
radiation biology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just did a show recently with Professor Martin Paul, and he was talking about the voltage-gated calcium ion channels of the cell membranes and how calcium, basically, according to his research, is flooding the interstitial or from the interstitial fluid of the blood into the cells. And I think he's sort of cross-referenced or cross-mapped I think over 100 different diseases to this kind of thing. And it's just it's definitely an electrified society. And I was looking at some maps and diseases stemming from 1879 to now, and when you look at all that, it just cancer rates go up. Every disease known goes up as a result of that. It's crazy.
Well, let me just say this, Justin. There's only one disease, right? Now, this is a little bit out of the box, and people struggle and squirm when they hear this. There's one disease. Well,
Yeah.
why do they have all these specialists then?
Yeah.
Well, there's only one disease, which is mitochondrial failure in a particular type of cell.
Mm-hmm.
And those cells are located in particular types of tissue. So what's mitochondrial failure? The mitochondria are little organelles, and they're not even human. This is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mitochondria are derived from bacteria, ancient bacteria. So they are a different life form that we have integrated in our bodies, and they basically make the energy for the cell. So the mitochondria in your cells, when they cannot produce enough ATP, adenosine triphosphate, that is the fuel or currency or energy that the cell uses.
Mm-hmm.
When the cell doesn't have enough energy, let's call it food, the cell gets all weak and it might just keel over and die. It might go necrotic, sudden death, or it might be just lurching along, limping, struggling to maintain itself, and that's a disease. And I'll explain the rest of that definition in a second. Or it might go really psycho and defend itself with a thick protein shield and revert to the cytoplasm from the oxygen phosphorylation method, which is in the nucleus, the mitochondria making the ATP in the nucleus. It'll revert to the cytoplasm which is called glycolysis. That is an energy-making mechanism by which the cell uses enzymes and sugars and does the energy production in the cytoplasm. If you picture an egg, if you fry an egg, the white part is the cytoplasm, the water-based part of the cell, and the yolk is the fat-based part, the nucleus. An egg is one cell. It is the largest cell we've ever seen. So anyway, wherever the cells should fail and develop what's called oxidative stress, which means too much work and too little food. The mitochondria are not making enough energy, fuel, food for the cell. Wherever that happens to show up in your body, whatever type of tissue it is or type of cells this is happening to, that's when we give it a name. And those names are the diseases that we know.
So it's a lack of the ability for the ATP to produce, or for the mitochondria to produce ATP. And then as a result of that, the voltage goes down and cells die quicker than they should, and disease process sort of starts to happen.
Well, basically this is a very progressive, very advanced way of looking at what mitochondria do. The life of the cell is electron-based. So the uptake of electrons and the loss of electrons. When the cell does work, it loses electrons. When the cell eats, it takes in electrons from the ATP, which is a nanobattery that is said to be made by the mitochondria, the Krebs cycle of it's also called OXPHOS, oxygen phosphorylation. And so one way you can look at this, which Martin Pall, I don't know if he has or hasn't, I've never heard him say it, but others have said it. The job of the mitochondria is to get electrons back into ATP, because when ATP is used up, it actually becomes reduced into adenosine diphosphate and monophosphate, which are its precursors. So mono means 1, di means 2, triphosphate means 3. So the full ATP is adenosine triphosphate. And when the cell takes electrons out of it, it becomes diphosphate and monophosphate. And then the mitochondria have to run around and go, okay, where are the electrons? We want more electrons. Give me some. I need to pack the ATP again. So now this is what's very interesting. However much you weigh, you recycle or remake or turn over, it's called, that much in ATP every day. So if I'm 100 pounds, I make 100 pounds of ATP every day to use for all my cells.
Interesting. Wow. And the heart and brain require so much ATP, don't they?
They do. The brain is very glucose using, and I cannot spout out exactly how that differs from ATP exactly. But anyway, let me just say this now. Progressive researchers, not myself, but I have read this, that the job of the mitochondria is really to keep the cytoplasm of the cell charged negatively. Okay. Because the water in the cell, the watery part of the cell, all the water in the human body almost is not a normal runny water. It is a gel form, a crystalline form of water. So instead of H2O, it's H2O3. Or is that right? I don't know. Something like that. I think it's H2O3, something like that. So that gel form of water is the water that's in the cytoplasm of the cell. And because it's got a crystalline formation, it's electrically receptive. So this is one of my dots that I've put together, but I don't know Dr. Paul, and I would like to ask him this question. When the voltage gated, the VGCIs, calcium CCs, VGCCs open, calcium channels open up because the radio frequencies hit them. All this calcium floods into the cell. Well, calcium is a cation. It's Ca+. It's positively charged. That means it wants electrons. So if calcium rushes into the cell in these huge quantities, then maybe the calcium is taking the poor cell's electrons and going, oh, look, I have electrons here, I can stabilize myself. Because ions like to pair. So my guess is that those calcium ions which flood the cell are robbing the cell of its electrons, which it needs for its maintenance and housekeeping purposes and for its whatever job it does in the body. And so the water in the cytoplasm loses its gel form because it's not negatively charged now.
So the electrons would be being excreted from the cytoplasm, and that's why it would lose its gel form?
Because the calcium is grabbing the electrons out of the cell, because calcium is positive. So that means anything positive, a positive ion wants to bond with something that's negative. So I think it could be that those calcium ions, all being cation ions, a negative ion is called an anion. So they're grabbing the cell's electrons, and the cell's going, hey, don't take my electrons. And the calcium says, you opened your channels, I'm here, I get to have your electrons. And so the cytoplasm does not hold a negative charge.
So then the cytoplasm, the water in the cytoplasm would then not be sort of that fourth phase or gel type of water, right? It would change as a result of that.
Yes. I think it's whatever I said before, it came to me as I was babbling, and H3O2 or H2O3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a theory I have. But what we need in the body is constant electricity. And my favorite topic of all is this piezoelectricity concept, which isn't a concept, it's an actual working form of bioelectricity. We use it in industry. When you have your grill and you have that little lighter that you flick to light your grill, what you're doing is when you press your thumb on the switch and you flick that switch is pressing a piezoelectric crystal. And the crystal is going, ow! And it's releasing a voltage. And that lights the butane or whatever is in that lighter. So piezoelectricity is the way our body functions. It's the real wireless electricity. So the ground rule of piezoelectricity is you have to have a particular kind of crystal. It's called a piezo crystal. And it can be metal, it can be quartz. There are many kinds of crystals that are piezoelectric, but they have molecules arranged in a certain type of lattice formation. And if you apply a voltage to a piezo crystal, it will shudder and reform, it moves, and that creates a frequency. So mechanical pressure movement is all called frequency. So if you apply mechanical pressure or any kind of frequency to a piezo crystal, it generates a voltage. So it's like a two-way, what do I call it? It's a two-way thingamabob that whatever you put on it, it will release the opposite. If you give it A, it produces B. If you give it B, it produces A. If you give it voltage, it produces frequency. If you put frequency on it, it releases voltage.
And these piezoelectric crystals are sort of all throughout our body then? Everywhere.
They're in the crystalline proteins in your DNA are piezo. Anything crystalline, it's quartz. If it's quartz, it's piezoelectric. So your body uses piezoelectricity all the time. So it's in your muscle cells. Let me just say this quickly.
Yeah, no.
You know Jerry Tennant? He was the ophthalmologist who got very ill, and he decided he was going to study body electricity.
Healing is voltage guy, right?
Healing is voltage, exactly. And what does that really mean, Justin, healing is voltage? It means you cannot heal without electrons. Okay? So when you take your shoes and socks off, and you go outside, and you frolic in the grass with your dog, or your kid, or child, I should say, or you walk on the beach barefoot on the sand, or you garden and you dig your hands in the soil, you are touching the earth, and the earth's surface has a very mild electron flow. Now, it's theorized that this is caused by lightning strikes, and it's theorized that lightning strikes are the energy of the sun. So basically, that flow of electrons, those electrons in the surface of the earth, are ported into your body, which is living and moist and not sealed off. It's not like a pair of sneakers with rubber soles. So those electrons come into your body from the earth, and then they are actually banked or stored in something called ground substance. And this is a non-fibrous gel that is put between the tissue layers, interstitial tissue gel. And your body says, oh, good, I've got electrons. And now, mind you, these are millions and millions and millions of electrons, even from just a half hour of pulling weeds. So those electrons get put in that ground substance, and then the body imports those electrons and distributes them and uses them for repairs and healing. So this is why it's so important for us to be, quote unquote, in touch with nature. And we're not, because now we live indoors. We live on, the second floor, third floor, fourth floor. We wear our silly rubber shoes, and we don't walk to school on dirt paths in leather-soled shoes or barefoot as we used to when this country was being settled, right? We don't farm. We don't garden. Our dogs, when you used to walk your dog and he had a leather collar and leash and he was snuffling in the bushes with his wet nose, and you enjoyed taking a walk with your dog because your dog was an electron donor. His wet nose, his leather leash, you were getting electrons from that. Now we have dog walkers and nylon leashes.
That's so interesting. So my question to you is that, do you think there's any issue, and I want to get into this coronavirus stuff in a minute, but do you think there's an issue with all this sort of, not really called dirty electricity, but it's the electricity that doesn't get sort of tracked back to the power stations? It's basically in the ground, and a lot of people are now saying that you should not ground because this electricity that we're creating artificially is getting into us, and it's not safe. Do you see any validity to that, do you think?
I have looked into that, and I will say that there are places where the power substations do receive return voltage in the ground, but for the most part, I don't think that's true. I've talked to the biophysicist, Dr. Gaetan Chevalier, about this, and honestly, there are houses where you have charge on your slab for some reason. I think it's called geopathic stress, but not everywhere. I mean, these are very rare instances. And so some people call them sick houses. But for the most part, I mean, our dogs are not keeling over and dying. Our plants and bushes would not be able to grow if this stray voltage, as they call it, was actually being returned through the earth.
Yeah, we were going to have Dr. Sam Milham on the show talking about this because he wrote that book, Dirty Electricity. So I just was curious because people, the grounding thing is kind of, people say both sides. The electricity of the earth is able to push off things that may use you as a ground. But regardless, our environment is changing so much with 5G. And I mean, it's something that we definitely need to study and be more aware of,
Well, we are living in the age of electrification and radiation and synthetic biology, and we're being hurried into a form of human being that we never were before, and we're moving at very high speed in that direction. And, as each generation passes through this, if we have progeny, if we have children, you can count on the fact that our children are going to be more like the Homo evolutus, the human of the future, that's going to be electrically biocompatible, I mean, seriously integrated with, Catherine Austin Fitts said it, and I put it in my newest newsletter, and I jumped out of my chair when I heard her say this. She said, and the first time she said this was actually a way she had misspoken. She said it in an interview with, James Corbett. She was interviewing James Corbett about his 4-part series on Bill Gates, which is very good.
Great one.
And she said, I think they're putting a Microsoft Office system in our bodies. And she meant operating system. So I call it MS BOSS. Microsoft Body Operating System.
Oh, wow.
And the little subheading in my current newsletter, which is going out right now, for the last segment of it, it's who's boss? Who's BOS? Because when you get this COVID vaccine, and maybe this will be our segue into C19.
Yeah.
When you get these vaccines with all their updates, I mean, wasn't it Bill Gates who brought us the computer virus? And you have to have the antivirus, and it's going to expire, and you have to, renew your antivirus software. And everybody dreaded getting a computer virus because it would wipe out your computer. And then what were you going to do? You have to get a new computer or
Right.
spend a lot of money getting the virus taken away. So we have been already kind of versed in the hazards of viruses, the electronic virus. And now they're absolutely deluging us in this fear porn of the biological virus, which isn't biological, really. Not really.
We are with Sofia Smallstorm, and if you guys like what you've heard so far, go over and check out her website. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now. This is episode 660, so I'll put links to everything that we talked about at extremehealthradio.com/660, and you can find her blog over at sofiasmallstorm.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, watching on Facebook, Twitter, I'm not sure, you should see links for her websites there. And she's got some really great products that we'll talk about at her website as well, Avatar products, and we'll talk about her newsletter too, which I think is going to be really, really interesting for you guys to look at. So make sure to pass this show on to your friends, and we're going to take a little bit of a break right now, but let me bring up, this is a nice little product that I like to use, and it's Reishi Mushroom, and it's a great, great thing to be on. And let me just bring this up so you guys can take a look at it over on our store, biochargeme.com. And this is a really, really amazing tonic substance, medicinal mushroom that you can check out. And look at, actually, there's a little video here from Daniel Vitalis. Check this out.
Scientific research is just now catching up to what we've known about reishi for centuries. This medicinal mushroom is a wellspring of immunity. A significant portion of our immune function is influenced by external factors like our environment, diet, and history of infections. Reishi is scientifically celebrated for its ability to stimulate compromised immune systems and reverse inflammation by promoting the development of white blood cells. In addition to its immune-boosting properties, reishi is a potent adaptogen that supports a healthy heart and circulatory system. Surthrival's dual extraction process concentrates all these benefits into every bottle. We use organically grown reishi, organic grape alcohol, and bottle our extracts in violet glass for maximum potency.
Yeah, I just love supporting Daniel and his work over at Surthrival, and it's just a really, really great product, and I take it often. I'm going to be buying some more here pretty soon. But, I mean, reishi mushroom, medicinal mushrooms are something that traditionally used in Chinese medicine and around the world as tonics, and that means that you can take these things forever, and it's immune system adaptogen, which means if your immune system is running too high, it will regulate it and bring it down to normal levels, or if it's too low, it'll bring it back up. So it's a great longevity tonic, and I love the way they do the dual extract because there's different terpenes and different substances that the water will bring out versus the alcohol, and they do that organic grape alcohol so that there's no toxins or poisons or whatever in the alcohol itself, along with the Myron glass. I mean, this is just, I would recommend getting this and being on like the auto ship or getting on this as a regular way to boost your immune system. It's just a great, great product called Reishi Mushroom over at Surthrival. And then this is sort of like the king and queen of mushrooms. This is the Chaga medicinal mushroom. And check this out. I'll play this by Daniel Vitalis right now.
Of course, at Surthrival, we do dual extractions with our chaga, extracting the chaga both in an organic alcohol, but also in hot water to provide both the alcohol-soluble fraction and the water-soluble fraction. Now, that water-soluble fraction really goes to work on modulating the immune system, and it does that in several ways. It certainly seems to educate, if you will, white blood cells on how to scavenge the blood better for pathogens and for cancer cells. It also seems to promote cancer cells killing themselves, so it promotes apoptosis in neoplastic tissues. It also slows the growth of neoplasty, which means it starts to slow down how quickly a tumor can grow. And then it's cytotoxic to cancer cells as well. So then it also poisons cancer cells while supporting the health of our healthy tissue. In addition to that, it also has some activity as an anti-diabetic, so it helps to lower blood glucose levels.
Yeah, guys, so this is over at biocharge.me. This is Chaga, and I was just listening to that thinking, oh my gosh, are they going to, like, what kind of claims can you make anymore? You know, I read recently sometime, something somebody was saying, and he was talking about how like you can't even make any claims these days about any impact, any biological impact that a substance like a food or supplement would have on on our biology. It's like you can't say anything anymore. It's crazy. So I was kind of just thinking about that when he was talking. But regardless, Chaga and Reishi, king and queen of mushrooms, I recommend getting on these. Try them out. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Twitter, there should be links down below for these ones over at our store. And that's how you support the work that we do. Because like Sofia and like many other people who produce content, the way we do that is by standing behind certain products that we use, right? So these are really great products, and I just really recommend you try them out. And I hope you're enjoying the show so far. It is episode 660 with Sofia Smallstorm. So we'll put everything over at extremehealthradio.com/660, and we'll be right back right after this.
You're listening to Extreme Health Radio, and I hope you're enjoying this show. Please share it with your friends by tagging at Extreme Health Radio on Instagram. Stay tuned for new shows weekly.
Yes, my friends, we are on Instagram. If you want to follow us there, feel free to do so. It's a love-hate relationship with technology. Considering this contact tracing and things like this, I'm almost considering giving up I have an iPhone 10, but it has no cell phone plan on it. So I'm even considering, I just got it basically for our Instagram account and to help promote the work that we do. But my goodness, I'm almost ready to give this thing up. Thank God I've never had a cell phone. But anyway, for as long as we're on Instagram, follow us there because we usually put reminders of all the shows that we do, the live shows and all that kind of stuff over on Instagram. So for the time being, follow us and let us know what you think and all of that. So we're with Sofia Smallstorm. So I want to get into this whole C19 thing and what's going on with that, Sofia. But before that, I'm sure people were really intrigued by your content, and I want you to give a plug for your newsletter because it's a different kind of newsletter, and you were explaining this to me before we started, but so valuable for people. So tell people about what you have going on with your newsletter.
Well, I started my newsletter 10 years ago in June 2010. And I was so scared. I didn't know what to write about. I had a friend who had a very successful newsletter, and it was snail mail. And she said, just be chatty. The chattier, the better. The more they'll like it. Yeah. And I said, chatty? My God, what am I going to chat about for 6 pages? And she said, no, you write about things that you're learning, and you continue to be right. Just be chatty the way you do it. Uh-huh. So I did. And I sent it out to some of my best customers and friends and whatnot in my small community, and I had a lot of good response. And so my newsletter continues. It's a yearly donation of a minimum of $50, and there are people who give me a lot more, and God bless them. Mm-hmm. But it's a minimum of $50, which is approximately $4 a month. Mm-hmm. It goes out monthly, and sometimes I do a double issue like this one. Mm-hmm. April, May. I'm still doing April, May, and we're in the beginning of June, but I don't care. Vogue magazine and all these magazines, they release the July issue in practically the beginning of June. Mm-hmm. And what's that about? Do they know the future? No. So I am the other way. And my newsletter is just single-spaced, 2 columns. I type it out. I'm the typist because the minute I start the newsletter, it basically writes itself. And I have things that are brewing in my mind, and I want to comment on them, and I do some excerpting from articles, books, and whatnot. But I really try to create a very different overview and discussion and dive into certain parts of the subjects that I'm treating in each newsletter. And you never know what you're going to get. That's what some of my subscribers say. They'll send me a renewal and they'll say, I never know what you're going to write about, but it's always different. And people will, I'm sorry if I'm patting myself on the back, but this really, I feel very honored. People will take themselves out to dinner with my newsletter so they can sit and read it by themselves.
I love that. That's so great. It's like the old breakfast with the newspaper, right?
Right.
That's so great. That's so cool.
Yeah, and then many of my subscribers save all the issues. They have 3-ring binders and they've got them, stuffed with my newsletters. Several binders now, I guess, because my drawer where I keep my hard copies, the originals, is getting kind of stuffed too. But I have to say, Justin, that this year I've been on the COVID, C-19 bandwagon, and I just wrote a double issue on this. I mean, you can't really stop because there's so much to say, right?
Right. Yeah. So I want to get into this whole thing because, as you know, it changes daily almost with new information and stuff. And there's a lot of talking heads and a lot of angles. And within each angle, there's multiple layers. And so there's a lot to piece together. And you mentioned this just kind of starting out on this virus thing, but you mentioned this in a previous show. And I thought it was fascinating. And it was the age-old sort of analogy of the frog in the hot water, right? But we've all heard that, and we all know how it goes. But you put a little twist on it, which I thought was really interesting. And that was, let's say the water is at 100 degrees, right? And that's the normal temperature of the water. And then you were saying what they do is they slowly raise the temperature of the water, and eventually the frog gets, it's starting to boil and it starts screaming. And then the frog says, turn the water down. But what you were saying was they don't turn it down to 100 again. Now it's at 150 as its starting point. And I thought that was so interesting because I am with you. I think we're living in a different world now.
Yeah.
Completely.
Justin, what they've done is, many years ago I received a book from John Kaminsky, the internet essayist, and it was titled The Perfect Enemy. And it was a collection of essays he had written in post 9/11 about Al-Qaeda. And The Perfect Enemy was this Al-Qaeda terror network, which didn't exist. It was fictional, right? And that's what we have now with coronavirus. I'm mumbling it.
I love it. You got to mumble it these days.
I know.
It's so funny.
So if you're determined to scare people and change the way they live, you create an enemy that doesn't even exist, and therefore it can never be caught. And it morphs, and it's trickier every year, and this is what they've taught us viruses do. I actually talked to a microbiologist many years ago at the beach, and I started laughing at him because he was telling me that viruses mutate so fast that science can't keep up with them. And I said, God, they really brainwash you guys.
Oh, you said that to him?
Yes.
I love that. That's so great. What was his response?
He was indignant.
Oh, man.
I said, don't you understand what this is all about? This is about making people be fearful of something that they have to get vaccinated for. And if you change the thing, or you claim that the thing changes all the time, then you have to keep vaccinating and vaccinating and vaccinating. And that is like assault upon assault upon assault added to the poor body. Because we all know this, that toxic load is an aggregation, right? Fat people, I saw possibly the fattest person I've ever seen yesterday. And I don't even want to tell you what I was imagining about how he had to go through certain body functions from his geometry. But I could not believe this. And the entire family was fat. And there's a reason for people being that obese. It's not just dietary. It's also that they're toxic, because the body banks toxins in fat. And most toxins in nature are not water soluble. For instance, glyphosate is, which makes it extremely dangerous. But toxins can be, quote unquote, safely stored in fat. And this is why it's so difficult to lose weight when you're morbidly obese, because your body is going, no, I'm full of toxins. That's my toxin bank. Don't you open it, because then I'm going to be flooded with toxins and it'll overwhelm me. So we are being assaulted. We have this perfect enemy upon us now, and our ways of being are going to be changed. I'm about to put up a video from the Orange County Board of Supervisors meeting recently, and there were school teachers there who were saying, you are creating a future generation of antisocial people who can't even recognize one another, who don't understand what a smile is.
That's so crazy. And this is happening in Orange County where we are?
Well, there was a Board of Supervisors meeting that 100 people attended to make their, views known on masks. I will put it up on YouTube.
Jeez.
On my blog. It's on YouTube. It's only had 69 views, Justin, and it is absolutely amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's happening to us is they are reforming the way that we function amidst each other.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I walk on the beach, little kids who are hopping around and, frolicking in the water, they finally let us do this. Before it was the beach signs were exercise zone only. No stopping, standing. Don't put your towel down. The second you spread your towel down, fool that you were, a lifeguard truck would rumble up to you and tell you to pick it up, fold it up, don't spread any towels. And now we can bring towels and beach chairs and umbrellas. But guess what? We can't bring coolers. Mm-hmm. You tell me why.
So that's the rule now? No coolers.
No coolers. Mm-mm. And social distancing. But my point was that when it was exercise zone only a few weeks ago and I was walking or running on the beach, you'd approach a little kid who would look at you in pure terror and hop back several feet. His parents had taught them.
Mm-hmm. And what's crazy too is now you're seeing kids, 7, 8, 9 years old with masks on, and talk about the psychological programming for a child like that too. It's so deep.
Yeah, and the re-inhalation of CO2 and, all the oral bacteria. A friend of mine, as smart as he is, he's even been to law school, told me a week ago or 2 weeks ago when he called me that his mask was so stinky from his wearing it for several days that he sprayed it with Lysol.
Oh, my God.
I know.
It's like, what?
Well, he was desperate.
Well, I saw a video. You see these things. Like, the other day at the store, I saw a woman who had her mask on and she had gloves on and she was standing at the little thing to put in her ATM card to make her purchase. And her glove and the index finger of her glove was ripped. So she was using just her regular finger, and then her mask was below her nose. And, you just scratch your head and wonder, like, if this whole thing is true, then what's going on in her mind, But it's like this psychological programming. I saw someone yesterday, he was sitting at a casino. It was a video of a guy, an overweight gentleman sitting at a casino thing, and he was smoking. He's shoving the cigarette through the side of his mask. It's like, I don't even know where to start with some of these people,
Well, you can't get through to them. Mm-hmm. You cannot get through to them. But what I find interesting is that am I supposed to mumble it?
You know what? We've kind of already mentioned it. I guess just call it C19 because I'm doing a little.
No, this isn't the 19 version.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just doing a little.
The crown virus.
Okay, yeah, I was just doing a little experiment to see if YouTube flags us if we don't say the word still. So it doesn't matter though. I don't care. Whatever we want to call it.
The crown virus.
Yeah.
Right? The crown virus is a vestige of having had a systemic issue. So some of these doctors are talking about exosomes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I decided exo means from outside, endo means from inside. Is there an endosome in the world? And I looked it up, and guess what? There is.
Interesting.
So I've started reading about endosomes, right? And I found out that an endosome is made inside the cell, and it is related to something called the lysosome. And the lysosome is an enzyme bag that is a digestive system within the cell that breaks down or digests dead substances that surround the cell cytoplasm when there's injury. So it digests parts of injured cells. And the lysosome is an endosome. And the endosome is part of the very important inflammatory response, which is also known as chemotaxis. Mm-hmm. So when you are hurt, when your cells have oxidative stress, it doesn't matter where it is. It could be, in your little toe because you bashed it on the door jamb when you were walking past in a hurry. Or it could be in your brain because you have a glioblastoma forming, right? It could be anywhere in your body. It could be a pimple. You have an inflammatory process going on. And the signs of that, inflammation is good. It's not bad. Lots of doctors say inflammation is the cause of disease. No, no, no. Inflammation shows up where there's injury to cells. So the inflammatory response has some basic characteristics. You'll see redness. There will be swelling. The area will be hot. It'll get very painful, and you will have rigidity or limited functionality. Right? So your body, let's say you sprained your ankle. Your ankle suddenly hurts, you can't move it, it swells up, puffs up like a big balloon. What's happening? Your body is opening the tissues. It wants extravasation. It wants to force blood flow and lymph through these vessels into the surrounding tissues. It's blowing up the channels. It wants to get the repair materials and the garbage trucks bringing stuff out fast, right? Then you have heat, because heat helps. It's the heat and fever are called hyperemia, and that's a constructive process because, for instance, with muscle issues, the heat allows the muscles to borrow calcium from the bones, because that calcium activates white blood cells. So the heat, and also in case there's a puncture, then bacteria might have entered or something, we need to have an antiseptic process going on, and heat is a form of that.
Interesting.
So, so the heat, the swelling, the redness, the pain, your body is going, there's an increased nerve action because your body is going, don't you move this, I'm fixing it. And then the rigidity, which means, again, don't move it, I'm fixing it. So what does the average coach, trainer, orthopedic surgeon, nurse, that type of person tell you? They say, oh, you sprained your ankle, wrap it up tightly in an ace bandage, put ice on it before you do that, and raise your leg.
Yeah.
So now you're constricting, you're freezing these tissues that your body just tried really hard to blow up. It tried to bring heat so it could borrow calcium and do basic repair processes. And then you're raising it up in the air, and now you're draining all the blood out of it.
Right.
So what you do when you do that is you get incomplete repair. And this is how you have a chronic problem, because you didn't let it fix itself. So the stages of inflammation, the first stage is this lysosomic action, this digestive process within the cell. And now I'm going to tell you that the other things that happen are the phagocytes that come in, the cell eaters, they also eat waste. There are all these sequential battalions of cells. There's neutrophils that come in, eosinophils that come in, then macrophages, and each of them does a job. Like one releases histamine, the other releases another enzyme that histaminase, which neutralizes the histamine. Then the macrophages come in and they eat the dead neutrophils and eosinophils that came before them. So it's a very tidy process, right? And then you get at stage 4, the white blood cells, the lymphocytes, and they do a lot of very important structural repairs. So when you interfere with this chemotaxis sequence, you end up, like if you take anti-inflammatories, antihistamines, hydrocortisone type stuff, all the acetaminophen, the aspirin, the antibiotics which destroy the bacteria that are eating the garbage in there, you are interfering with the body's own way of dealing with injured tissues. So back to the lysosomes, which are the first things. When those things that are made within the cell, the endosome, lysosomes, can't do enough repairs, then the cell communicates through its gap junctions using infrared light. It has communication methods to other cells, and it says, hey, send me help. Send me exosomes.
Ah, okay.
So exosomes are repair materials made by healthy cells, and they are shipped into the bloodstream and delivered to ailing areas. So there's endosomes that the cell makes, and when the endosomes can't do enough along with the chemotaxis, the exosomes are sent by other helper cells nearby.
So the endosomes are inside the cell.
And made within, and the exosomes are made without. Now, it was Andy Kaufman who looked into virology and looked at the exosomic creation of cells in the body, and he matched the shape of crown virus, the exosome, sorry, I should say this way. He matched the shape of crown virus to exosomes.
Okay.
And he said this is the same thing. So when you look at what viruses really are, they are subcellular materials. They contain proteins and they're crystalline. And they travel around in the bloodstream. Now, when they got the electron microscope and they looked in it and saw these crown viruses and other crystalline materials smaller than cells floating around, and those tissue specimens came from sick people, they mistakenly concluded that this thing caused the sickness. And it would be like you driving around town and you seeing a car accident and there's a bunch of broken glass around and you go, oh, that causes the car to have an accident.
Right.
So we have mistakenly attributed to viruses causation of disease when they really are these exosomic creations made by other cells in the body, this is my theory, for an ailing set of cells, and they're sent on the bloodstream. And now here is my real big analogy that I'm going to deliver. When you have an accident or an illness, the first thing that the body calls is the army. The army is the inflammatory response. The army consists of all those battalions, the lysosomes, the neutrophils, the eosinophils, the macrophages, the phagocytes, everything, right? So those battalions come in and they try to fix the thing. And endosomes are part of that process. And then let's say that it's not getting, the job of healing isn't getting done fast enough. And there's more cell death still going on than cell repair. So the army didn't create the solution all by itself, so the Navy is called in. The Navy would be the ships in the bloodstream that the body sends to clean up more debris, and those would be the bacteria that are ported out of your intestines. They come out through the portal blood, and they're bacteria crawling all over your organs. And we have quadrillion bacteria in our bodies. And those little ships ride the bloodstream, and they go over to the area that's ailing, and they help. They're the trash men of the body, and they start eating the debris. Now, the beautiful thing about bacteria is they are pleomorphic, which means that they can change their shape based on the buffet you give them. So they can actually go between forms. They can start as rod-shaped and end up being cone-shaped or cylindrical or round, depending on what food they're eating. So once again, when they looked through microscopes and they saw that a person had such and such disease, which meant disarray in a particular tissue or organ, and they saw these bacteria in the body, they mistakenly concluded that those rod-shaped or round or cylindrical bacteria were the cause of this disease. They didn't think for a minute that the bacteria came from elsewhere in the body because they were the Navy, the ships of the Navy, and they changed their shape based on what type of tissue they were eating. Because bacteria regenerate, in the blink of an eye.
So what were they doing? Looking at many different people and seeing the same bacteria and then just extrapolating that conclusion? Is that what they basically did?
Let's say you have a particular liver issue, and we'll call it a liver disease. And then your body sends bacteria to the liver to clean up the cellular debris, because bacteria feed on decaying organic matter. And then because they're eating that type of liver tissue, the bacteria will change into a certain form. Right? We could give them a SKU number. They'll become XYZ bacteria. They they arrived as ABC bacteria, but because of the tissue they were eating, they became XYZ bacteria.
Okay.
Right? So then the scientist looks in the microscope and goes, oh, XYZ bacteria. This person had a problem with their liver. Here's another person with the problem, same liver problem, and they have XYZ bacteria. This must be a liver disease caused by these bacteria that got in from outside.
I see. Okay.
Right? So that's the work of the Navy is to assist the Army. It's the shipping of bacteria from elsewhere in your body to an ailing area where the bacteria might actually take on a new form depending on what type of cells and debris they were eating from what type of organ.
So I know you have lots of interesting ideas and theories. And so the general consensus is that especially during what they would call flu season, people get sick and they, pass these viruses back to each other and they get sick. The alternative health community, lots of them say, well, it's just low vitamin D season. What are your thoughts about why people would get sick during what we would call the flu season? What's the connection, do you think, there?
Well, flu season happens when the sun is waning, it's colder, and you've got less body heat, and you're using your energy to create body heat. And, in the sepsis cycle, which is the sepsis half of the year is winter, things will die and degenerate, and molds and spores and bacteria get to work outdoors, and they start decomposing all the leaves that have fallen off the trees and whatnot. Well, it's time for your body also to renew its tissues, because the oncoming season is going to require better preparation. So you have cells all through your lungs and your mucosal passages and your throat that need to be beefed up. So now you're going to start a sloughing and release process, ejection. So you're going to develop coughing, runny nose, sneezing, hacking, wheezing, and your body's going to be in repair mode, and it's going to run the inflammatory process big time, and it's going to make you lie down in bed so it can attend to all this, and you're going to feel like crap. So that's called the flu or cold, or it can get into a respiratory infection because your body says, my gosh, your lung tissues are in terrible shape. I have to make new ones. And all the stuff that you hack out, whatever color it is, whether it's clear or white or yellow or pink or green, those are different cell layers being expunged and repaired, replaced. So let me just get back to the virus thing. The Navy is called in, the Army has been called in, and let's say that doesn't even do the job. Now we need the Air Force, right? So what's the Air Force? It's those exosomes, because they are crystalline, which means they are bioelectric. They have those sharp points. So they float around in the bloodstream and they go to the injured area with the ailing cells, and they bump on the cell's surface. And boom, the voltage-gated channels open up.
Okay.
And they get in. And the cell goes, hi, thank you, Air Force. They're literally like the refueling tankers that would meet up with the C-130 or the helicopters in midair and refuel them.
Okay.
So the virus, the crown virus, gets into the cell and goes, yeah, you know what? I know how to replicate myself. And the cell goes, really? You can make more just like you? And the crown virus says, oh, yes, watch me. And it starts replicating. Now the cell is getting all this bioelectricity because this piezoelectric thing is in it. And the cell goes, gosh, thank you. I needed these electrons. Now you're actually living inside me. So I depart from the idea that viruses are toxic secretions of sick, toxic cells. They're not. I believe them to be bioelectric.
So these viruses are in all of us, right?
Yes, and they're in us because they're the consequence of having had systemic issues. Crown virus is going to be in you if you've ever had a cold. I don't know how long it hangs around, but it can be there. It's a vestige of the common cold. So what these people have done with their fear porn is they've taken the most common thing known in man, the sniffles, the cold, the flu, and they have tarred it with this black brush and called it the indicator of a deadly disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because as soon as you isolate it, not in the way that we would think, but as soon as you say that this thing now has this name, it's like what we did with Al Qaeda, right? Or Osama bin Laden. Or as soon as you give something a name, you create an enemy, and then you just start the fear porn, like you said. You call it a common cold coronavirus, and then all of a sudden, people are walking around with masks on, afraid for their lives.
Exactly. And I'm going to tell you something. If you look up crown virus or coronavirus on Wikipedia, it tells you it's the cause of the common cold, and it's been around for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So everyone's got it in them.
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now. It says here, coronaviruses are a group, let's see if I can read this, of related RNA viruses that cause disease in mammals and birds. In humans, these viruses cause respiratory tract infections that can range from mild to lethal. Wow. Yeah.
It'll say there, I'm looking in my newsletter because I've done several issues on this. I'm trying to find the one where it said, where I quoted from Wikipedia, and it says it's the cause of the common cold. And I'm going, really? That's all it is?
Yeah, mild illnesses include some cases of the common cold.
There.
There it is.
There it is in Wikipedia. But we have to erase the word cause. So I would say it's a vestige. When you find it in the bloodstream and the person isn't sick, it's vestigial, means it's left over.
Mm-hmm. So it's a leftover viral sequence that's in our blood, it's in all of our blood, right? And it sort of gets activated at certain times for certain people.
No, it not necessarily gets activated. It was active once. It was the Air Force.
I see.
The fueling tankers.
Mm-hmm.
Once these things, it's like going to an Army base, an Air Force base, and seeing fuel tankers on the ground. Of course, they have to be kept somewhere. So,
okay.
Our body has viral forms in it. They are endogenous. There's no such thing. Now, we remember endosomes and exosomes. Mm-hmm. We're told there are endogenous viruses, which these people, with their fear porn, have now called retroviruses. Oh, well, your body makes those things, but they don't really ever do anything. But if you have too many of them, they'll cause autoimmune disease. I heard this from somebody. She said her doctor, who's progressive, told her, you have too many retroviruses in your body, and that's why you have this, host of autoimmune disease going on, and you can't recover, and all these things go wrong with you. Wow. Well, the fact is that viruses are made within the body to address damage. And these doctors are not admitting that. They're calling the retrovirus a different form of virus that your body does make. But they're trying to tell you that there's polio virus hiding in ponds, that there's flu virus that mutated from, gravitated from birds to people, from pigs to people. And these viruses are exogenous. And so we are getting vaccinated for the exogenous viruses, meaning from without, the ones that come from the outside world. And there's really no such thing.
We are with Sofia Smallstorm, and this is episode 660. We're going to take a little bit of a break and go on for about another 15 minutes or so because I want to make sure that we're kind to her and her schedule. And we're going to talk about the mask situation, and we're going to talk about some of that, some of the more political stuff coming up. And I just find this stuff to be very, very fascinating. Make sure to visit her website, sofiasmallstorm.com. And let me tell you about my sort of favorite little device. It's my little spa at home that I use, and it's called the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. This is such a cool little tool that you can have in your home that will allow you to detoxify heavy metals, poisons, these types of things that get stored, like she was saying before, in our fat tissues. And so recently we had Dr. Stuart Nunley on the show, and let me play his little clip because he was, or he is, a biological dentist, right? And he was getting mercury poisoning, and at one point he thought he was diagnosed with ALS. And so he was removing mercury fillings in people, without a mask or without any of the proper equipment that now he uses. But this was long before he woke up to biological dentistry. And he has a really amazing story. Listen to how he used sauna therapy to help detoxify his body.
You know what I chose to do? I chose to go very, very slow as I detox. So one of the things that I did is I invested in an infrared sauna, which was huge. That was a big, big part of my healing because, interestingly enough, many times patients who have heavy metal toxicity lose the ability to sweat. And so I was one of those. I could not break a sweat. And the infrared sauna helped me to retrain my body to be able to sweat. It was a huge part of my overall detox.
Doesn't Dr. Huggins say, as long as there's more going out than what's coming in, you're okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right on that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, too, where, in today's modern world, there's no way for us to completely live in a Faraday cage in terms of blocking, toxins and chemicals and poisons. I mean, since the 1960s, there's been over 60,000 new chemicals. I think there's like 80,000+ chemicals in commerce, and new chemicals and poisons are developed every year. And so, despite what they're spraying on us from the sky, and so it's like, there's just no way. So I think that moving into a 5G world, moving into a world filled with toxicities, it's super important to have one of these things in your home. And here's Dr. Shea talking about it as well.
How do I detoxify from plastics? I mean, you guys are using a sauna, and that's something I'd like to get. And what does a sauna do for us? A sauna is great. It's moving a number of different toxins. Remember, we talked about the mice, that if you put PCBs in there, then that made the mercury all that much worse. And sweating moves out a lot of plastics, volatiles, fat-based toxins. It's really good at moving those out, sweating those out. So that's how you're getting those out, and those are contributing to this synergistic soup inside the body. And so that's why they're good, is they're taking out a bunch of the different things in the soup.
So here's a little protocol that I like to do. So I have one of these little rebounders, and I combine it with a sauna therapy. So rebounding, it's not like one of those things where you'd see in the 70s with Farrah Fawcett or Jane Fonda jumping up and down with the exercise clothes on. It was super goofy. But now, I mean, when you learn about rebounding and how it stimulates the millions of one-way valves you have in your lymphatic system, and you have more lymphatic fluid in your body than you do blood, which is amazing, right? And so this is also where toxins get stored, is in your lymph system. And so when you jump up and down, the mechanical pressure of jumping and the G-force associated with jumping up and down on these mini trampolines helps to open and close these one-way valves. And so what I like to do is I like to jump up and down on a rebounder in full spectrum sun, getting biophotons from the sun and grounding while I'm doing it. Just take it out in my backyard and do it in the sun with no sunglasses on and exposing as much skin as you can. And I'll usually do that for about a half hour. And then after that, I will get my sauna. And here's what Dr. Sam Byrne had to say about rebounding. It's pretty cool.
I wanted to mention about rebounders just for a minute. There's been some studies that rebounders bring down the eye pressure in glaucoma, and it's something that I recommend for people who've been diagnosed with glaucoma. And I've done a lot of videos on the connection between the lymph system and eye health. So I'm right there with you. I think the rebounder is a great activity for improving eye lymph and overall lymph health.
Mm-hmm. I think so too, because what people talk about it, and it being a cellular exercise, you go to the gym and you can't work out like cells in your body or different areas of your body, like your nose and your eyes and things like that. But jumping up and down it affects every cell in your body, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. It impacts the meridians, as you say, the lymph circulation, the cerebral spinal fluid. So, and a lot of people just have lymph chi stagnation. They're not getting enough movement, partly because we're sitting and looking at screens all day.
Mm-hmm. Our modern culture is so crazy, everything we do. It is, my friends, and so I recommend getting out in nature, getting more sunshine, and a great way to do that, combine both of those, is getting a little rebounder like this. It's cool because the legs fold. If you're worried about balance, there's little balance bars you can put on it. It's silent, so if you're worried about like doing it next to your husband or wife while they're sleeping or the kids are sleeping, makes no noise, and you can store it underneath your bed. This is just an awesome longevity tool that I would invite you to invest in your home and turn your home into like a healing center, a healing sort of place to heal. So that's what we like to do. We like to jump up and down on the rebounder and go into sauna. And, you can do each, in 20, 30 minutes, you can knock both these things out and be a lot healthier for it. So, all right. So we were with Sofia Smallstorm, and her website is sofiasmallstorm.com. And I will, there should be links around, and I'll put everything over at extremehealthradio.com/660. So, Sofia, I wanted to ask you about this whole, because you were talking about the viruses and essentially how the endosomes are inside the cell, and these things are so tiny, yet you still see people walking around with these goofy masks on, thinking they're going to protect themselves from viruses. It's crazy. I mean, like, to me, these masks aren't doing anything. What do you think?
No, they're not. They're not about protecting yourself from a virus. That's the imaginary thing. It's like believing in Santa Claus. Really. Mm-hmm. That's what the addiction over masks, or the allegiance. Mask allegiance is the equivalent of believing in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. That's my opinion.
Have you had to wear one, or have you worn one so far?
I devised, because I go to some, I'm sorry to use this word, it's very disrespectful, but I go to some libtard stores, like Trader Joe's, yeah, where I can't buy anything else. And in fact, I called their corporate headquarters and I told them, you've basically lost my business. And the woman said, why? And I said, because of the way you treat us over this COVID thing.
Right.
The way we have to not only wear a mask, but we have to go up one aisle and down the next and up the next and keep a 6-foot distance. And if you forget to buy something, I mean, you should see these people scrutinizing everything in every aisle, trying to decide if they should buy it. And you have to wait, while they make up their mind. And then I'm used to zipping around, and I used to go to Trader Joe's like 3 times a week and buy stuff. Just impulse buying. Oh, I feel like doing this for dinner. So I would go there and get something. And now I've been like once a month because of the embarrassing and humiliating treatment they give you, with all their little proctors standing around pointing you this way and saying, no, ma'am, the arrows are on the floor, and this is follow the arrows. So they require a mask, and I ingeniously made a mask out of Swiss Shield Daylight, which is a radio frequency fabric, which is a mesh, and it's very breathable. And I had a piece left over from a curtain that I made, and I just made a little rectangle out of it and put a little hem on it and tied a piece of some string through that, and that's what I wear.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. I've yet to have to wear a mask. I just walk in and just wait for someone to tell me something, and then I just, explain my case. And so far I haven't had to wear one, but it's one of those things though too, Sofia, that, you and I are both in California. I'm not too far from you, just in San Juan, a little bit north of you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's lovely.
It's a great spot. And I just feel like, what, like we have 2-year-old twin boys. And, it's one of those things where I just was thinking the other day, if we don't fight for our freedom and stand up to this nonsense that's happening, what kind of location are we going to leave our kids, whether it's whatever state you live in or the country as a whole? I mean, what kind of generation of kids are we going to bring if we're not going to stand up for ourselves? It's really important.
No, I agree with you. In fact, I put on my website a little card that you can print the files for the front and back for the Americans with Disabilities Act, whereby you aren't supposed to be forced to wear a mask. And we've had very good feedback from all over the country that it works. The reason I'm not doing it is because by nature, physically, I'm not confrontative. I'm mentally confrontative, you could say.
Okay.
And I know that stores like Trader Joe's are not going to let me get in there without a mask. So I use my Swiss Shield Daylight, which is so breathable. And one person in a store asked me, and she tried, a little twit of a cashier tried to tell me in a health food store that it had too many holes in it. And I said, I'm sorry, this is silver threaded antimicrobial fabric. And there's no way what you're wearing, choking off your oxygen, is better for you than what I've got around my neck. And I tie it very loosely. It's really just around my neck, and I'll pull it up if I have to. But I never wear it on walks, never wear it to anywhere else except to Trader Joe's. That's really the only place, and that one health food store.
I'm going to bring up your website for those that are watching on video, and this is not your store website. This is your Sofia Smallstorm. And where were you talking about a second ago about the letter that you were saying? Or
oh, it's there are two headings. One is "Dude, Where's Your Mask?" and the other is "Face Mask Exemption Tool."
Where
you might
is
have
that?
to scroll down.
Okay.
I'll go there myself.
Okay, so I'm on your site. Dude, where's your mask? Is that on the left?
The red titles.
Oh, red titles? Oh, okay. Let's see.
So, Face Mask Exemption Tool, I reposted it.
Okay, I don't see it on the website. I just want to give people this option.
On sofiasmallstorm.com, on the blog page. Let me go there.
On the blog, let's see. I'm on the home page, or let's see.
Not home page. Blog, so Smallstorm blog on the left. And it's not loading because they know that I'm on the call with you and they don't want me to have my own website loading.
Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now I see it. Okay, I see. So you reposted it recently?
Yeah, maybe I have to post it all the time. So the first thing you see is a sane COVID discussion. Then you see Catherine Fitz. Then you see Clarinet has healed herself. Secret King of England. That's kind of fascinating.
Oh God, that'll be good.
And then Face Mask Exemption Tool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the red titles.
Ah, there we go. Face Mask Exemption Tool. Okay, cool. I'll put a link to this.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good.
And seriously, I did this with my friend David, and lots of people wrote from all over the place. Some people wrote and said that they got pushback, and
oh, this is cool. Okay, so for those that are listening, I'm going to read this for you guys. This is the actual card. It says here, I am exempt from any ordinance requiring the use of a face mask. Wearing a face mask poses a mental and or physical risk to me. Under the Americans with Disability Act, I am not required to disclose my medical conditions. Department of Justice ADA violation reporting number, and then there's an 800 number, and then it says violating the ADA can incur steep penalties. A fine of $75,000 may be imposed for initial violation and $150,000 for subsequent violations. I love that.
Yeah, when store managers see those numbers, they get really jittery.
Oh,
but
man.
I have had a couple of people tell me that they called the ADA, which started dodging and trying to, oh, no, they can require you to wear a mask. Whatever we say doesn't have carry any weight. So don't call the ADA. That's not the first thing you should do. The first thing you should do is show the manager of the store this card and see if you can shake him up a little bit with the 75,000 or the 150K numbers there, right? And it usually works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, these people, they just want to keep their jobs. And this is the thing that it really angers me. It's like the road to hell is paved by people saying, I'm just doing my job, right? It's like these people are just, I'm just doing my job. But, we need people to stop just doing their job and start thinking and start, doing things that are in a rational way rather than, because everyone's going to be innocent if all they ever say is I'm just doing my job. It drives me crazy.
Right. Well, the thing is, I have an acquaintance who told me that I shouldn't be emotional about investing in Microsoft or Apple or 5G as he does. I said I could never invest in those companies, I'm sorry to tell you. Or I'm glad to tell you. And he said, oh, you shouldn't get emotional about what you invest in. If it makes you money, it makes you money. And this blows me away because it's a view that no matter where the money comes from, it's good to have money. It's clever and ingenious to make money out of money. America is a country where if you have money, no matter how you come by your money, people will go winky wink at you because they'll approve of the fact that you're a self-made millionaire or multimillionaire. Doesn't matter how you got it.
No. Doesn't matter, the means don't justify the end. It's like people don't care. It's like you said, and it's I mean, that's the nature of our world, which is bizarre. And I'm with you. I cannot invest in companies that are actively harming the world and taking the world in a direction that's catastrophic. I mean, how could you do that?
Yeah.
It's
yeah. And the sad thing is that the person who advised me that I should not get emotional about what stocks I invest in, and nor should anyone else, that person is wheelchair bound with a crippling autoimmune disease, and he's investing in 5G.
Oh my
and
God.
Happy about it. Yeah. I mean, what do you say?
These are people that are not connecting any dots. They're not seeing their actions and how their actions impact their lives. It's crazy.
And I'll add this. That person gets a flu shot every year and is proud of it. And lives on a golf course that is liberally sprayed with Roundup.
Wow. And probably has no idea, right? Not connecting any of those dots.
Refuses to.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's amazing. I mean, when you have a physical condition that is that serious, and some well-meaning, I'm not a moron, okay? I didn't fall off the turnip truck. And I come with real information and concern, and I'm told, no, I don't believe any of that. You're a conspiracy theorist.
Well, you know, it's like what you were saying earlier. You know, these are the kinds of people that, unfortunately, we're not trying to reach. You know, these aren't our type of people. Our type of people are people that are waking up. And, you know, I'm with you. I think this whole thing has created an army of people that are slowly waking up. I'm seeing it from listeners to the radio show. I'm seeing it from people I'm running into at the store. Last night I was at Sprouts here in San Clemente and ran into a woman that is completely awake, and she was the only other person besides me that wasn't wearing a mask, and we had a conversation for about a half an hour. And so I really think there's a great awakening happening.
Well, slowly, if you watch this, YouTube, if there's a way you can play this for the audience, it's 3 minutes and 25 seconds. It is so worth it. I just sent it to you in Skype.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. Let me see. Is that a YouTube video? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'll do? I'll put it on the show links because YouTube will cut us down if we play this.
No, it was filmed at the Orange County Board of Supervisors. It's the one I talked about. The YouTube will come at you if you do that?
Yeah, because you're not allowed to share any kind of content. Like, you can't put other people's content inside of your content. It's bizarre. But
all right. Well, just link it because it's only had 69 views. It's a baby.
Well, it's 89 now. 20 more people have seen it.
Possibly because I sent it around.
Right? I know.
Well,
this
not
is good.
me. My other friend who sent it to me. Yeah, it might be just the last hour.
You know, I think there's a lady by the name of Peggy something here locally. Is this the lady where they protested at her house and she recently rescinded the mandate or the advisory to wear masks publicly? Is this that video?
This was filmed at the Orange County Board of Supervisors hearing.
Citizens Against Face Mask Regulations. Oh, man, this is great. Okay, I'm going to link this up. This is 3 minutes long, so.
It's fantastic. It's one of the best coronavirus videos I've ever seen.
Well, Sophia,
I like mumbling it.
I know, right? It's kind of such a dumb word anyway. You know what? Tell people about your avatar products. I'm going to bring that up. And guys, I want you to just know that, you know, for people like Sophia and people like us, this is how we make our living, and this is how we continue the work that we do. And, you know, it's not one of those things where neither of us are getting rich off of these products, but it's a way to support ourselves while we put out information like this. And yeah, so Sophia, tell people a little bit about Avatar products, and I will bring that up on the screen for people that are watching.
Well, I'll tell you, Avatar products used to be a DVD, T-shirts, books, and bumper sticker site, because at that time I had made 9/11 Mysteries, and I was doing the rounds, giving presentations on chemtrails and whatnot, and I sold DVDs, and I had T-shirts and bumper stickers and books written by other people, and I had a brisk business. And then DVDs were dead.
Yep.
They were like coffee coasters, right? And so what I had to do was reinvent myself, and I did it with 1 bottle of iodine. I added iodine to my website. It was kind of like a sore thumb. Didn't know what category to put it in. And I sold iodine painfully and slowly, and it just did such great things for people. I added more. I added magnesium products, sunscreen made by a chemist, in fact, formulated by me, one of them, the Bali Block, the only one I carry. Food grade, 4 ingredients only. And you can use it on your lips, and you just put it on areas that are prone to burning, like the bridge of your nose, the tips of your ears, your shins, or whatever. So I added another product, Restore, the Zach Bush product, which is now called Ion Biome, and I became one of the top sellers of Restore because I plumbed how it works in terms of biochemistry, and what it does, it ignites an ancient electrical language between the bacteria in your gut and those mitochondria in your cells, which are bacteria as well. So the 2 bacterial cousins speak this redox signaling language to each other that they can't speak without a certain carbon metabolite that's missing in our bodies now due to the fact that they've ruined the soil. So anyway, once you study Restore, and once you can explain it, which takes more than 5 minutes, unfortunately, I did very well in the sales of Restore, and I have repeat customers for that, repeat customers for the 3 iodine products I sell, which are very inexpensive, and then the magnesium products, which I have formulated together with a biochemist. So I work with different labs. I come up with my own ideas. They're very simple. And I say, can you make me something, the magnesium gel I have been using myself. That was something I came up with, and my chemist made it. And it's a great deodorant also. So, you know, I even added a little alcohol to it and made a hand sanitizer just for those coronavirus people. Okay. But anyway, so I like the fact that I am now a bioremediation store, and it started with 1 bottle of iodine.
That's
just
so
the way
cool.
my DVD and bookstore started with 1 book. 1 book. And I think it was that Perfect Enemy book that I talked about at the beginning of the show.
Right.
I really do, because I remember putting up the image, and my web guy called me and he said, that image is too big. And it was full size. It took up the whole website. I didn't know that I had to make it smaller.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I think my bookstore, DVD store started with that, and the 1 bottle of iodine, and the magnesium cream that I sell, I had nothing to do with that formulation, but it is absolutely stupendous. You just use a tiny bit, and within a minute, your pain goes away. I'm going to tell you a story. I did a farmer's market for a while, 4 years, and lots of people would walk by, and I would try to interest them. They were mainstream people. I would say, well, do you know anything about magnesium? No, thanks. No, thanks. I'm good. And they'd blink and hurry away, right?
Right.
So it was very difficult to attract attention, but occasionally I did, and there was this very stocky, large man in his 50s who came by, and he's looking at my stuff, and he goes, what's this? He told me he was a baggage handler for Southwest Airlines, and that he hoisted 13,000 pounds of luggage every day.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, my knees are shot, my shoulders hurt, my back aches, everything hurts. And I said, you got to try magnesium cream. And he said, well, what's that going to do? I said, here, I took my little tester and gave him a squirt. And I said, just put that on your knee and come back. He said, well, how long is it? I said, just come back in a little while. So 5 minutes later, he was back, and he said, what is that stuff? I want to buy 3 of them. What's the biggest size you have?
That's so funny. That's so good. Wow. I mean, it's so great. I'm glad you have magnesium products, because that's one of the things that's changed my life. And people think, oh, magnesium, you know, it affects 3,000 enzymes or 300 enzymes. But in actuality, it's like 3,752 of our 9,000 enzymes run on magnesium. Like, it's the #1 mineral that we should have in our body, magnesium. And the burn rate is so high because we use it for everything. So that's really cool. I'm glad you've got magnesium products in your store. That's great.
Well, physically, Justin, it blows up those tissues. It helps with inflammation. It's another little, army asset. It will enlarge tissues and it relaxes them. So calcium rigidifies everything and makes it harder and makes it hurt, and magnesium relaxes it. So when you relax those tissues that are needing repair, and you open those blood vessels, you get quicker repair.
That's awesome. So this month, what are we in? June of 2020. When does your newsletter come out this month, and what is it about? And then do you have next month's sort of scheduled out yet, or is that coming later?
Well, this is April, May, and I'm just mailing it, and it's a double issue, and it's about coronavirus. Again,
Coronavirus.
I've done 2 other issues on that, but they have other stuff laced in. And this, do you know who invented the lockdown? It was invented by a 14-year-old girl called Laura Glass. This is what we're told.
Not Greta Thunberg, right?
No, she had a science project going, and her father worked for Sandia Labs.
Oh.
And she was 14 at the time, and she found out, she did some research, and he helped her because Sandia Labs had supercomputers, and he helped her figure out who would come into contact with the most people every day. And it was school children. 140 people on average, a school child interfaces with on a daily basis. Okay. So Laura Glass theorized, maybe with her dad's help, that if you shut down the schools, you'll lower the spread of a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then the feds call up her father, because Sandia Labs is a very big, important, federally connected company. And they go, hey, what can we do if there's ever an epidemic? He goes, oh, my daughter's working on this school project. She entered it in an international science fair in Indianapolis, and she won 3rd prize, and the federal government grabbed it, and they added to it, and she is now an author of the Emerging Infectious Diseases Journal, Volume 12, Number 11, November 2006, paper.
Oh, my God.
And, but I wrote about super kids and Sandia Labs in my coronavirus issue. Mm-hmm. I wrote about a lot of things. And also, every time you say this is show 660, I shiver in my chair because I think you're going to say 666.
I know.
Yes, I wrote about Microsoft patent 060606.
Right.
And what else? Some about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And then I finished up with Who's Boss, which is Microsoft Body Operating System.
My goodness, that's so cool. And so these are like 6 pages in length?
This one's 12.
12, right, double issue. Okay.
It's a double issue, but usually they're 6 pages. And I've just written about all kinds of things. Sometimes I'll read a book, and the book will grab me, and I'll write a newsletter on it.
I'm glad you're doing this newsletter more old school because, for so many reasons. Because, I think that we all need to sort of disengage from technology and get our eyes into the real world. And, sitting there, at a dinner or in your home on the couch and just reading something physical like that, I don't know. I think we need to go back to that. And it's cool that you're doing it that way. I think it's novel, it's different, and it's pretty cool. I like that.
Thank you. I mean, this is what I like to do. I don't want to do something online. I don't want to spend more minutes flattening my butt.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, and being in front of blue lit screens for longer than you're in nature, right? It's like no wonder why we're so sick.
Well, Justin, I'm sure that you want to conclude this so you can have some lunch and go and jump on your rebounder.
Yes. Sophia, so everything's at avatarproducts.com as well as sofiasmallstorm.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, my site aboutthesky.com, I'm only leaving up for posterity, but someday I'll take it down. I haven't really added anything to that site in a long time. Okay. So the active pages are the podcast page. I occasionally put interviews on that, and the blog page where I select things and post them. And they're very strategically selected. They're designed to make you think. And then there's my newsletter, and my store is the site that most people go to most often to do their repeat shopping. Okay. And with everything you buy, you get something free. Like this month, we're giving out I do not consent bumper stickers. You'll see them if you go to avatarproducts.com. For every $10 you spend, you get a bumper sticker worth $3. So if you spend
cool.
$60, you will get 6 I do not consent bumper stickers. Full size, UV resistant, waterproof, real bumper stickers.
Oh, nice. That's so cool. I love that. That's great. Well, Sofia, thanks for being on the show today. Thanks for your patience at the beginning, trying to get this tech to work. I appreciate that so much. And I'm, it would be awesome to do it again if you'd be willing to. Maybe we can kind of theme it around one of your newsletters one time or something like that. Would be really fun.
I would love to, and I'm going to send you some issues. And for hosts that interview me generously, I comp them on the newsletters for sure. So I would love to do that with you.
Oh, wow. That would be great. Yeah, I would love to have you on a regular basis, too. It would be fun to dive into more of your work. That would be great.
And more discussions. And I would like to mumble more forbidden terms.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. All right. Well, thank you, Sofia. I'll be in touch. I'll send you the link to the show when it's available, and you feel free to pass it around wherever you like. But I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much. It's been great fun and a privilege. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sofia. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right, guys. Well, there you go. SofiaSmallstorm.com, episode 660. And I was just thinking, when she said that, who's going to be episode 660? Let me take a look at our schedule. Or 666. I wonder if we should, how hotels will skip the 13th floor, I wonder if we should skip episode 666. So we got Amanda Vollmer next week on DMSO, George Wiseman on Brown's gas, Tyler LeBaron on molecular hydrogen and Brown's gas, Michelle Lamassa Schrader on recall healing, Jason Christoph. Oh my gosh, my friend Matt Blackburn. He's going to be episode 666. That is, oh man, that's going to be pretty funny. Well, maybe we'll have a joke about that. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that show with Sofia. I feel like she brings some really interesting information, and I hope that you got some good information out of that. And I just encourage all of you guys to think for yourself. And one of the things I like to encourage everyone to do is, turn off the media, turn off the news that they're programming to us. All of this stuff, whether it's TV shows, whether it's like series on Netflix or series on Amazon Prime and series on Hulu, all of this stuff is programming. And one of the points I was going to mention during today's show was that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And in the age of information, ignorance is a choice, right? You can choose if you want to be ignorant, and you can choose to bury your head in the sand, and you can choose to just plug your ears and say, la, 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 I'm not going to listen, I'm not going to listen, I'm not going to listen, much like Sofia's friend who just is unwilling to look at the connection between his environment and his lifestyle and being in a wheelchair. I see these people every day, and my encouragement to you is to look at this whole coronavirus thing as like a movie. Remember that movie from like the 70s or 80s? I think it was Poltergeist or something. I remember on the box, the front box of the cover was a little girl, and the picture, and it was her watching a TV at night, and it was like a fuzzy screen or something, and that was the front of that movie Poltergeist, because it was like a nightmare kind of a movie, a horror movie. And I invite you to look at it like that. So whenever you're getting sucked into debating people about virology or about how the immune system works or why you're not going to wear a mask or how the Rockefellers are behind all of this or there's a new world order and ID 2020 is coming and all these types of things, whenever you get into debating people about this, you're now in the matrix because you're taking positions and you're taking sides and you have an opinion. And I encourage all of you guys, much like that picture on that cover of that movie, to look at this like a movie. And you can step into it and become a part of the matrix and as often as you like, and debate people and get all caught up in the politics and the world stage and this whole thing, or you can step out of it and just be a general observer. a non-detached observer. So I encourage you guys to think of it like that, so that you're not going to be emotionally invested in this whole thing. At the same time, I think it's really important for all of us to stand up for our rights, to be strong and stoic and knowledgeable in what you're doing, but not give yourself over to this thing. Because there's so much disinformation out there. And I tell you, if I were to just watch the news and I didn't know anything I knew now, I would be scared to leave my house. I would think someone's going to cough on me, someone's going to touch me, I'm going to get coronavirus and die. That's what I would think if I watched the news. But I just really encourage you guys to turn off the news, read a book, go outside, get healthy, do something to invest in your health, and these types of things that really require you to invest in yourself. Because this is where true immunity lies. If we, as a subculture of the population at large, people who are interested in natural health, people who are interested, if we start taking care of ourselves, then there is no such thing as this virus that can come and kill us, some external exogenous virus. And one of the things that we tell our members inside the Extreme Health Academy is knowledge eradicates fear, right? The more knowledge you have, whether it's mental or experiential, the more knowledge you have of a particular subject, the less fearful you become about it, no matter who tells you things. Because if you understand a subject through experience or through understanding, which literally means to stand under and take responsibility for, if you understand a subject matter like that, it doesn't matter what the guy on TV tells you. It doesn't matter how all these people are dying from coronavirus. None of that matters, because you understand things at a deep, visceral level, right? So knowledge eradicates fear. And so this is what I tell people, is that there is a thing called acam.org. And if you go to Google and type acam.org, you'll find a website called acam.org. And what you can find on that website is you can search by zip code. And on that in your zip code, you can search for UV therapy. It's called, I think it's just called UV therapy. And basically, it is called ultraviolet blood irradiation therapy. Now, you can put your zip code in and you can search for a UV therapist in your area, and they will take your blood out and expose it to certain frequencies of light, like methylene blue and other frequencies of light that kill viruses. So a friend of mine, Dr. Richard Massey, who's been using this along with vitamin C therapy for decades, has never seen a virus be able to stand up to this. So if you have a child that has chickenpox, if you have a child that has measles, mumps, rubella, coronavirus, any of these types of things, if you have a child that's coming down with a really severe case of the flu, go on to acam.org, or go on there before preemptively and look for someone who does UBI therapy, ultraviolet blood irradiation therapy. And you can find someone in your area, and it's usually anywhere from a 10 to 30 minute treatment. And just knowing that, look up Dr. Frederick Klenner. And he was using, I believe it was UBI, but he was also using high-dose IV vitamin C. And this is something controversial, especially if you're familiar with Morley Robbins' work using whole food vitamin C with all the J factors and all the different factors that make up vitamin C. And ascorbic acid destroys a certain protein called ceruloplasmin, which your liver and different organs will make to shuttle copper, to make sure the copper is bound and usable to make sure the iron levels don't get too high, suffocating the cells of oxygen. So, if I were really, really sick, I might do high-dose IV vitamin C therapy. But just knowing that UBI is in your area, you have no fear at all. That's not counting all the other things. I did a video inside of our academy with 26 studies known, not just virus, but coronavirus killers. And the research is out there on PubMed everywhere. There's research about all the things I talked about in there. So knowledge eradicates fear, and in today's information world, ignorance is simply a choice. So when you're more knowledgeable about a subject, you don't have to be afraid. And fear is what causes people to take action. And when people take action, that's what the system wants you to do, is to take a particular action, to be a good sheep, to get in line and to do what you're told and to don't question anything, stay in debt, support the system, pay your taxes, and then die. That's what the system wants. That's fine. That's their thing. But when you know better, like Oprah says, you can do better, right? So don't get on me about Oprah. But it's a good quote regardless, right? So I hope you enjoyed that show with Sofia Smallstorm. That was episode 660. I'll put a link to everything that we talked about at extremehealthradio.com/660. And if you like the show, consider joining us in the Extreme Health Academy. We're doing once a week live Zoom calls with all of our members. We're getting together, hanging out, sharing different ideas. We're talking a lot this morning before the show about dental health and things we can do to improve our gut health and a lot of really cool things. There's monthly courses, monthly Q&A sessions. We've got a member community forum on there, ways to connect to each other. It's just an awesome place. If you're looking for a community of people that are like you and wants to take responsibility for your health, because that's really what it comes down to, right? We're not sick because some outside force. We're sick because we didn't take enough responsibility for our health. And once you do that, then you can start taking steps in the right direction. And getting people on track is what we're all about at Extreme Health Academy. So if you want a free 2-week trial to the Extreme Health Academy, the code is EHR14, and there should be links down below for you guys to do that. And come and say hello in the forums. Every Friday before our live shows, we will be joining up and hanging out, and it's really a good time. And it's a great supportive community that can help keep you inspired and give you tips and ideas for overcoming your health challenges. So this is what we're all about, right? Providing answers for people, connecting the dots and putting all the pieces together, because red light therapy or light therapy is not going to be the answer for everything. Ozone therapy is not going to be the answer for everything. Getting rid of parasites, mitigating 5G, getting your minerals, all of these things must be done collectively, improving your internal and external environment, right? And so all of that to say that once you improve your health, it's really not about health, because for me, I'm not really that into health. It's like you do it because you want to have the energy to be able to live the kind of life you want to live, right? You want to go out and explore. You want to travel the world. You want to start businesses. You want to help people. You want to do this, that, or the other. You have to have energy and inspiration to do that. And if you live in today's modern society, that's going to be sapped from you through electromagnetic field radiation, through toxins, chemicals, and poisons, making you fat, sick, and depressed, riddled with anxiety. This is what modern society creates. So we are creating a new type of human inside the Academy. So come and join us if you guys would like. That would be awesome. I'd love to have you in there and make friends with you and get to know you a little bit more and help you out in any way I possibly can. So if you're interested in joining the Academy, the link's down below, extremehealthacademy.com. And the code for a free 2-week trial is at EHR14, and say hello in the forums. I'd love to help you out. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that show. That was awesome. You guys are amazing. Thank you again so much for just being a part of our life and being a part of everything that we have going on. It's really awesome. So I feel honored and humbled that you are here and you're with us. And so pass our show on to your friends if you would like. That would be great. All right, guys, love you so much. I'll see you next Friday, and we'll talk about DMSO and all of its applications and uses. Love you all. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any information in this blog or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment/cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be continued as such. Always work with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle, or exercise activities. This information is provided as is, and the reader/viewer assumes all risks from the use